And hello. So this Fire Talk is now live. Cool. I see Jim Woodburn, Mitch Harris are here already. I'll invite Jim on, and hopefully his microphone and camera will work. And while he's logging in or clicking the accept button, I'll just say that this is a Fire Talk about visual representations of clinical decision making. I presume they can drive behaviors, so they're executable. And I see a second image loading here, which hopefully will be.
There you go.
Hey, how you doing? Is it Jim or Woody?
You can call me Woody.
Okay, all right. I always thought Woody. How do I look, and can you hear me fine?
You look a lot better than me, so that you're good.
Okay, well, the sound's the important thing, so I don't mind.
Right. No, I hear you loud and clear.
So, okay, well, welcome to Fire Talk. If you're looking
thanks
at
for
go ahead.
Thanks for meeting.
Yeah. So, well, right now we have 3 viewers, 2 of whom are us. The other is Mitch Harris, which is a really interesting guy. I've never actually met him in virtual face-to-face on Fire Talk, but we interact a lot on Twitter. I believe he's a computer scientist interested in healthcare. And let's see. So we are looking at, all right. I'm not a professional Fire Talk interviewer. I kind of use it more like to hang out with friends.
Yeah, I like it.
But I guess the couple things to mention about it is that if you in the upper URL, if you want to send that to people, you can invite them, and they can pretty quickly join, and they can be in the audience. And over on the right, you'll see there's a viewers tab and a live chat tab, and that live chat is so viewers can type questions, and lots of times they just sort of kibitz with each other. We'll be talking about something, and one of us will say, there's this website out there, and then a viewer will go find it and
cool.
Paste the link. So, okay. I guess I'm just very briefly, I'm an industrial engineer who went to medical school, and I'm very interested in all kinds of workflow and workflow technology. And obviously workflows interact with rules. I also have a master's in artificial intelligence. So we, messed around a lot with rule-based systems.
Yep.
And Joe, a common friend, referred us, we should talk. So originally we were going to, I guess, I don't know, on the phone and then maybe Skype and video. And I said, what the heck, let's just open it up to folks. And what I usually do, we've got 5 viewers now. Janice, how you doing? Janice, I did a Fire Talk with Janice about chatbots about a month and a half ago. And there's Michael Joseph, data science guy. And so what I do, and I'm modeling this after a guy named John Lynn, who does a lot of health IT social media. And that is, I talk with you for half an hour, and then I open it up, and then other people can join, and it's kind of like Hollywood Squares. Okay, so so let me just start off and say, Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself and Applied Pathways.
Well, thank you. And Joe has been a colleague of mine from here. I live up in Minneapolis, and I'm Jim Woody Woodburn. I'm an electrical engineer. I went to UCLA for a couple of years, started in the early 70s, and then transferred to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. So I'm a Badger fan. Mm-hmm. I was electrical and computer. I got a master's degree in biomedical engineering. And when I was in engineering school, I was interested in the healthcare space, and I discovered fairly quickly that, and I think you'll resonate with this. There's a cultural gap. There's a linguistic gap between engineers and doctors. Mm-hmm. And I went to medical school to be a better engineer. I had no intention of becoming a physician, which I ended up being, because I wanted to help translate what the doctors needed into my language of engineering and systems approach and that kind of stuff. So I went to medical school at Madison, and then got a residency in emergency medicine up in Minneapolis at Hennepin County Medical Center. So I trained as an ER doctor, did research and education, worked in the St. Paul area for about 6 years in emergency medicine. And I've had quite a broad shift. I was medical director at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota for 12 years. I helped run Minute Clinic. If you're familiar with the Minute Clinic clinics that are in CVS Pharmacy, I helped take that national. Spent a couple of years as an entrepreneur in residence with a venture capital group here in Twin Cities, partially funded by Optum Health or United Healthcare, and then helped do a joint venture with Cisco Systems and United Healthcare in telemedicine. For the last 7 years, I've been the chief medical officer for Applied Pathways, which is a visual programming system that allows clinical subject matter experts to visually build a flowchart that looks like Visio. And once that flowchart's built, it actually is executable. So there's a visual authoring system with a rules engine behind it so that you can actually, it takes about 2 days to teach a doctor or a nurse how to visually create a flow. And then it's executable. We have a native export of XML. We have some other formats that we can export to. So that's a bit of my history. And Joe Rocher, your friend who had introduced us, actually, I worked with him for a while when he was doing another startup several years ago. So nice to meet you, Chuck. And everybody else on the phone. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and Danielle showed up here too. And this is kind of, I don't know, I kind of think of this as kind of like a gathering around the coffee cooler. You know, it's very informal. So I do have some questions for you.
Oh, sure, yeah. Fire away.
But I do kind of, it's like we're about 25 minutes from some of these folks actually stepping into one of these squares and maybe asking some questions if they're willing. I do want to just mention Danielle, who is InnoNurse on Twitter. She won a really cool open hardware hackable biosensor system at HIMSS. And it's EKG, EMG, dermal activity. Yeah. So basically, she just had the coolest. And I think she's talking about basically instead of paying thousands of dollars for an EKG machine, it's like $200. Of course, now you got certification issues in the United States. But it's very popular in the developing world where it's less, you know, it's more of an issue.
Yeah.
So anyway,
cool.
So so 2 engineering degrees. You have real engineering degrees. I have a fake engineering.
No, yours is cool. Industrial. I loved industrial engineering. You guys made things work great. You know, we threw stuff on the table and you guys picked it up and made it work right.
Well, this is
you're good.
The industrial engineering department, which is now the enterprise and industrial systems department at the University of Illinois. By the way, I almost went to Wisconsin to get a PhD in health systems engineering.
Should have come up. We had a good time.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend at the University of Illinois.
All right. That happens.
Tough choice. But anyway, so I mean, it's so funny. My brain is going so many different directions. Obviously, I want to talk about applied pathways, but you know, the topic of visual programming is an interesting one. I messed around with visual programming as early as the late 80s. There were visual programming systems for the Mac. And drag and drop. And I remember conversations with, you know, people were debating whether they really were easier or not. I mean, like, so now I think I've come to the conclusion, and you can kind of jump in here, that, you know, that potentially they are easier because you don't have to deal so much with syntax, you know, of computer languages. But they also need to be kind of. By the way, my Fire Talk channel is called Health IT, Social Media, and Miniature Schnauzers. So
I was wondering that. So Chuck, I'm in Minnesota. It's 9 degrees out, and I just let my dog out. Can I go let him back in?
Yes,
I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We got listen. That's why we got these folks here. So let's introduce some people to each other. Let's flip over to live chat. Hello, Stephen. Yeah, everybody tweet like a sentence about themselves. Or not tweet. Live chat. Post to live chat. Ashley, thank you for showing up from Availity. Met you. And I met Michael. Yeah. So right, now that.
Thank you. Right, you can tell I'm a newbie at this stuff.
That's okay. That's okay.
I don't have two little kids. I don't have 2 little kids that are going to run in with my wife chasing them.
Yeah. That was really funny.
Visual programming, are they easier or better?
Yeah. Give us your kind of, take on maybe where I was right or wrong about my impression.
Yeah. So like any software system, when you make it easier, it's like squeezing a balloon. When you make it easier on one side, it becomes suboptimal on the other side. So, in healthcare, and the vast, I don't know, 70% of clinical rules are relatively straightforward. So diabetes management, make sure a patient is getting their hemoglobin A1C, a foot exam every year. They're straightforward rules. And what we can do with our visual programming is easily construct those rules with branching logic. With that export into XML, we can hand that off to another rules engine, or we have our own rules engine that can execute and push it up to a user interface, make it pretty easy. And so it's pretty performant. It would not be a good application for, microsecond transaction systems. So you suboptimize, intensely high speed transactions, and you make it a lot easier on the authoring side. But in healthcare, it's been a really nice fit. We're working with Mayo Clinic. They built probably over 140 rules, which are ambulatory care rules. Mm-hmm. So if you're a Mayo patient, you call into the clinic today and say, hi, I'd like to make an appointment. I've got a really bad headache and a bit of a fever. The nurse on the phone will say, okay, yeah, let me, sorry to hear about that. Let me ask you a couple questions. And then our system will launch in front of her. And then the questions that are appropriate for a headache and a fever will show up. And she'll process the question, and answer will be rendered. And then with branching logic, she can get down to a right disposition. So that's one example that we're doing today. It's a really solid system. Mayo's been using their clinical knowledge that they've built for 20 years. It used to be on paper, and now we've translated it into an executable rule system. So
when you say 140 rules, each of these rules is an entire sort of decision tree with and multiple
right, exactly levels. Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and they're big ones. It's like imagine trying to triage chest pain.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, that can go a million different directions, and it does. It goes in a lot of different directions. And in fact, all of the algorithms are concatenated. So if you call up and say, I've got a really bad headache and a fever, and it started after I had this crushing chest pain when I was shoveling snow. You have to branch into all these things, and it'll go to the highest priority clinical situations. So headache would start as a chief complaint, and then it would branch into the chest pain decision-making tool. At that point, with about 2 questions down, it would say call 911.
And I've got I watched a video, and I've been over on your website. By the way, folks, the website is applied pathways.com. In fact, I will copy and paste it right now. And if you want to pop over there, and if you see something and you've got a question about it, this is like an ideal forum for that.
Thank you. We just added yesterday, Monday, a new video that our CEO and me and a couple of the founder have put together that paints a more articulate picture of what Applied Pathways does. So that's brand new. So that hopefully will be showing up there, and you can look at that. That's
interesting. Now, actually, I'm interested in the upper left corner of your screen. Do you have a button that says Screen Share?
Let's see.
Upper left corner.
Yeah.
Do you have a red button that says Screen Share?
I don't.
Next to it. No. Okay.
Yeah.
So apparently, I'm the only person who can screen share. But okay. So blah blah blah. So if it comes to it, one thing I could do is probably go over to Applied Pathways, go to an image, pop it up. It replaces my picture, and we can continue to talk. I don't think we necessarily need to do that because I think we can paint word pictures. I think I'm guessing that just virtually everybody here has created a flow chart of some sort for some purpose. And if you're in, I think if you're in healthcare, I don't know, management or IT, you think about all of the workflows people have drawn on napkins, and people use it to communicate with each other.
Right.
Now so here's a question, because I think you're the right person to ask. So I actually spent about half my time in the workflow management industry. That is business process management, workflow engines, orchestration.
Yeah.
And partly I do that just because it's just a really great way to learn stuff and then bring it over to the health IT side. Some of these folks might chuckle, but I do kind of think of myself as Dr. Workflow. And
I think that's a good note. I think that's a good name.
Okay, well, that's so and I play around with it. I have so I took the Dr. Strangelove picture of Peter Sellers, and he's, kind of acting weird, and over his head it says Dr. Workflow.
Writing the bomb.
Yeah. So now, so in the workflow industry, you have a set of tasks that need to happen, and a model of the relationship between those tasks, and those tasks are put into inboxes, or they're executed automatically.
Yeah.
And their status is tracked and displayed, and nothing can fall between the cracks, because if it doesn't happen, if it isn't handled, it basically creates an exception, and is handled some means. And so you've got workflow technology, which is about making things more efficient. Whereas on the other hand, you've got kind of rules, business rules management systems in the BPM industry. And obviously, these rules, as they execute, they affect and they deflect. That is, you've got some workflow that's executing, and you go down this path versus that path. And if you look at the notations, if you look at a workflow diagram and a rules diagram, they both look very flowchartish.
Right.
Okay. And I'm just kind of, how do you? I'm sure that your technology is embeddable. It's being used in other systems.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious how you see kind of the rule, sort of representations or declarative representations of clinical knowledge interacting with potentially representations of although often they're implicit and hard coded in the software of the workflow that's making things happen efficiently.
Yeah. Well, I can see now why Joe, our common friend, introduced us, because you're here with workflow and we're here with clinical rules. And it's a beautiful fit because we're not a workflow engine. We provide information that's so if a nurse has to go to a patient floor and she's evaluating the respiratory rate and the temperature, and she enters in information with that task in the workflow, and it suddenly will trigger a pre-sepsis or a sepsis detection algorithm. And then a certain set of new recommendations will show up that would feed your set, which is now a task, which would be, all right, follow up, get a pulse ox, do a blood culture, it's a standing order. And then, later on, there would be another clinical decision support. So I really see them actually needing each other to make it an optimal, system viewpoint total package. So it's a great time for us to have a conversation.
And so, in other words, you see them as distinct, different, but highly complementary.
Yeah. And everything gets fuzzy in life. It's kind of a Venn diagram. You're over here and I'm over here, so there's some overlap. But certainly we don't have a task engine. We don't have a system that's in place. We would give you our package, the data payload. And you're the user on your side would enter in information, come over to us. A process would go through a branching endpoint based on the rules would come back to you. So that's where I see the intersection. A nice overlap.
I'd like to point. Be sure to click over on live chat if you're not.
Oh, sorry.
Click on live chat. That's right. You'll see that. You see all the comments. If you scroll down to the bottom here, Stephen Waldron.
Hello,
right.
Stephen.
So, do you know Stephen?
Well, he probably doesn't remember, but when I was at Clinic, I went down to Kansas City and met with the AAFP, and you were certainly talked about it. Maybe we had met face to face before, but so I've certainly heard your name and hold you in high regard. So hello there. So rules equal logic, workflow equals process. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's a really nice way to put it.
Yeah, that's I think about I've programmed in a lot of different languages, including Prolog, which is a logic-based language. Yeah, University of South Wales, Prolog.
Right. Yeah. Yep. That's Z80, I think.
Claude Samet, who's now back. He was at Illinois when.
Oh, right.
And I took. It was really funny because I would write a Prolog program, it would work perfectly, and then the next day it wouldn't work, and that's because he was debugging the interpreter at the same time we were writing our Prolog program. Yeah. So anyway. Well, it makes me think about. Well, first of all, let me just look at the time. We got 11 minutes. This tends to keep people around because if they think they're going to get on, get a little FaceTime. So
if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to ask. And go to the website. Can I give them my email? Can I type my email?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
Shoot me an email. I love to show people a demo is 1 billion words. Jim.Woodburn applied pathways.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah, I'm a crazy guy.
That's so okay. And by the way, this video that we're creating right here is you can play it again later, and it's going to go over to YouTube, and you can embed it.
Great.
So I think you've really described several things that that very succinctly that. Particularly the relationship rules and workflow, which I think it's in. So I mean, I've heard people look at, for example, clinical guideline, clinical protocol languages, okay, and then look at workflow languages such as business process management and notation and Petri networks, which are kind of the academic workflow languages. And they'll conflate them, and they'll kind of like say, well, because you've got a network and you've got some symbols and you've got some logic.
The same thing.
Yeah,
I made that same mistake. So workflow. You actually taught me some ways to differentiate the two. So Chuck, you've taught me just in the last week or so.
Yeah. There's an interesting, actually, I love visual metaphors and stuff. By the way, Michael Joseph wrote to Stephen and Jim, is the challenge integrating the data in the workflow engine for semantic interoperability? Yeah, that runs off into whole, syntactic, semantic interoperability. I think there's such a thing as workflow interoperability, which I'm all but dissertation in computational linguistics from Carnegie Mellon.
Oh, that's why you like Joe Ruscher.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. When I was on a call with him, we talked a lot about.
Yeah.
But anyway, where I was going to go with this was, so I'm thinking about, and because I'm on things on social media, I'm pretty good at creating little multimedia things that play in a tweet, and so I'm thinking about an animated GIF or GIF, however, in which you've got a pinball machine, okay. And there's a ball bouncing around in the pinball machine, and you've got flippers, okay?
Yep.
And so the layout of the pinball machine, that internal structure in which the ball flows through, that's the workflow. But then the when and why the flippers flip are kind of like the logic.
Right. It's the rules. Yeah, I draw a picture on the whiteboard of kind of that bouncing pinball thing, because you hit here. Are you a female? You bounce this way, and are you pregnant? Your ball's going to bounce this way. So Michael and Stephen, I see your questions here, and Michael, I think it is certainly a challenge to integrate data into a rules engine for semantic interoperability. I mean, that requires data definitions to be precise, so that when the data comes in, if we push out a system, a message or a data element, it has to be clearly defined so that there is interoperability. Probably worth a deeper conversation, because I oftentimes get to the level of my knowledge competency. I know what our system does, but that's certainly one of the things we spend time on when we embed our visual programming rules engine with a client. We have to do the data mapping. And then Stephen, shoot me an email. I'd love to have a conversation with you. We don't have an open representation. We're a small, we own the company, so we're trying to grow business, but we always want to have conversations with people to see how we can work together. So I'd love to show you our algorithms, and that would be great.
I'm hoping we can get Stephen to take one of the seats. I can host up to 2 people for a total of 3. In about 6 minutes. So that might be an interesting. I hope, Stephen, that you'll be willing to do that. I guess it's so cool. Yeah. Stephen has done some stuff with what is Drools?
Right. Yep. That's another rules engine that we're not unique in the world. Pega Systems has. Do you know Pega?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's more BPM.
I know Centrac.
Wow. And so, but we just take a little different spin where even though our visual authoring system is 100% agnostic to healthcare, we're all healthcare people. So I've been thinking about this for 7 years, so I can help translate stuff quickly. But that'd be great. Great to reconnect and show a little bit more.
Well, there is a kind of the way Tech Guy does this is he does that first half hour so that if we can create that kind of, I can create like an exactly half hour long sort of show, how he does it. and then he opens it up. So we've got about 5 minutes here, and I guess I'm kind of just given what we've talked about, and maybe do you have any just something to fill that 5 minutes with? Some really interesting idea that you've had recently that you've been noodling?
Yeah, I won't sing and I won't tell you a joke because I'm good at neither of those. But I joined the company because doctors and nurses and subject matter experts in healthcare need a better way to get away from the need to have programmers. I was at MinuteClinic, and we built our clinical decision rules system. We locked in the entire system. So I published a paper 7-8 years ago now that showed we hit.
What's the title of the paper, and is it on the internet?
Oh my God, it's on my LinkedIn page. It's a long name. I can't remember what it is, but go to my LinkedIn page. Go to LinkedIn. It's
okay. Go to James Woody Woodburn's LinkedIn page. Find the 7-year-old paper and post the link in the live chat. Okay, keep on going.
Okay. So we hit 99.72% clinical perfection on a strep throat algorithm on 56,000 consecutive patients.
Wow.
We own the system. The p-value was 0 because we counted every one of them. And so it was a simple snapshot of a clinical scenario that was able to be that level of perfection. But we also had the people, the policies, the process, and the technology 100% aligned. It was a wonderful experience, an example of what a system like Applied Pathways can bring to the world of healthcare when subject matter experts can quickly build visually, and then their engineer. You don't have to give your description to a bunch of programmers who are expensive. It takes some time. Typically, it's not perfect the first time you see it. You got to come back and iterate. Our system allows you to do that iteration on your own, build rules, and then you hand over that XML package or another system using our APIs. We can accelerate clinical improvement dramatically, and that's why I'm in the company. That's why I've been pounding this for 7 years. So there you go. That's my soapbox.
Well, intersecting, I could say almost the exact same thing, except it's not about rules. It's about workflows, and it's about efficiency and flexibility. So it's kind of like you want to do things as efficiently as possible,
right?
But subject to the constraints that it's good medicine and they're good decisions and they're good outcomes. And then you want to do both of those in as flexibly a fashion, so that you can systematically improve both. That goes off into things like here. You've probably seen the commonly mentioned ratio, or sort of definition of healthcare value. It's like outcomes divided by cost. It's always funny as an engineer. I look at that and I go, well, okay, now what are the units and and I play around with is this really a formula, or is there a better one that I can come up with? Kind of relate. We got about 2 minutes here. Talk about how what you're doing fits in the whole value-based medicine movement.
Oh, sure. So Michael, you asked a question. Yeah, we're looking at FHIR. We've been involved with data exchange, HL7, and other transactions. So we've got our developers looking at FHIR, making sure that we'll be, hopefully we'll be compatible with that. But we're watching it. We tend to be a little slow. We want to make sure our customers are adopting it, and then we'll build behind it. We don't want to be too far ahead of it because our resources are pretty limited. So we take it pretty easy. So Danielle, you got a video. I wonder if that's my boss. Let's see. So she said Danielle has a link there.
Okay. Well, cool. Well, so I'll just close. I just think that the kind of stuff. It's
great. Nice to meet you guys.
The value of the value-based stuff. The decision making, moving that closer to the subject matter expert.
Yeah, that's worth another visit. Maybe. Good question. I'm just sensitive to time, and if people.
No. If we want to go to 35 minutes.
All right.
Give me a couple minutes on applied pathway and value-based care, and then we'll start inviting people aboard.
Okay, sounds good.
Over to you.
So I think, as Stephen, as you've been watching, as we've all been watching, I 12 years ago thought value-based was going to go a lot faster. than it has. So the transition of volume to value has moved at a glacial pace. You know, icebergs are falling off Antarctica much faster than we're moving into value-based care. But the trend is, I'm seeing it. I'm finally seeing that people, executives, CEOs and hospitals and practice groups are now seeing that the economic driver is becoming more clear, more significant, and they're seeing the tipping point of accelerating both penalties and reward based on value outcomes of clinical care. So now people, you know, I thought it was going to happen 10 years ago. Now people are really, okay, so Woody, tell me about how your system can help us build, now not insurance, I'm an insurance guy. I worked for Blue Cross Minnesota for 12 years, and I see that perspective, and it brings value to the world. But, you know, when care is delivered directly between a doctor and a patient, or a clinical team and a patient, and the rules like care management, disease management, wellness, if you move those closer between the doctor and the patient, you have a much better impact. It's a bigger impact, it's a better impact, and it pushes the work closer to where it ought to be done. No, fewer intermediaries. So as systems are now looking, okay, so if I'm going to get paid more with a good outcome, and Chuck, what you said was, you know, what's the definition of a good outcome? Well, those are becoming clear as time goes on. So bypass, knee replacements, hip replacements, you know, the outputs, the outcomes of, you know, patient satisfaction and clinical mobility and, you know, exercise tolerance, and all those clinical and symptomatic outcomes can be measured now. Well, how does a new team of an orthopedic doc and an internal medicine doc and a family practice doc and a physical therapist, how do you put those people together? So the value-based package, that it has to have those people involved. How do you stitch them together to make sure they're following a commonly agreed to plan? Well, one part of that solution is electronic system, of visual rules authored in a workflow. So your workflow system and my clinical decision is what they need. You have to give them a path that they can follow easily, electronically, sucks in data from multiple EMRs, you know, doesn't disturb them with irrelevant alerts, and keeps everybody on the same path. With that system approach, you can get to that, you know, move towards that level of what MinuteClinic achieved with the paper that I published. It takes everything working together. So a visual rules authoring system for clinical decision support with the workflow and people that are trained and economically aligned, you got to put all those pieces together.
Spoken like a systems engineer.
Well, maybe I'm an engineer. I'm not a doctor.
People, technology, process. Okay, well, Woody, I've really enjoyed this. I hope you can stick around to. But that's sort of the end of sort of semi-formal part of the conversation. Now we'll kind of head to an even more informal.